Okay, Kings. Okay, Kings. I see you. Welcome on in. It's going to be a fun day. The voice that you hear is not that of Nick Cattles or Ramie. I'm filling in for them. My name is Zachariah right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. We're going to have a heck of a show for you, I promise you. If you want to call in or text, I'm sure Kings fans out there, you got to have some sort of opinion. The Kings, man, interesting offseason. In an offseason where I didn't think they had a lot of wiggle room, they found a way to make some big changes. And that includes the head coach. So it should be a much different year next year. I think you can have varying opinions on it. But either way, if you want to text the text line, 916-339-1140. That's the same. You can either call or text at that number and just give your opinion. Obviously, the news coming down, the trade, the Hawks deal, Kevin Huerter to the Kings in exchange for Justin Holiday, Maurice Harkless, and a future first-round pick. Now, don't be too worried. This is per Adrian Wojnarowski. I just like the excuse to pronounce it. It's kind of like Antetokounmpo, because I know how to do it, so I just kind of like to flex. I don't know. Weird little thing that I got in the biz, you know what I mean? But don't you worry. The future draft pick is lottery protected in 2024. So just in case this all goes awry, then you don't have to worry about giving that pick up. But hopefully you just give the pick up. You want to lose this pick. You don't want to be in the lottery next year. And it becomes a top 12 protected pick in 2025 and then a top 10 protected pick in 2026. But again, you want to have that pick be gone by 2024 because this is looking like the Kings are really trying to make the playoffs. And it's not really what I expected them to do. And if you're a Kings fan, I wonder how you feel about their approach, whether it was hiring Mike Brown instead of, say, taking a chance on some sort of up-and-coming assistant that hadn't had a head coaching job yet. That's one option. Just depends really if you're swinging for the fences or if you're trying to establish a winning culture. And my guess is the organization and Monty McNair and the fan base probably, I'm guessing that you're happy with it. Now, I'm one of those guys where swing for the fences, like I'd rather hit a home run or strike out than, that's a bad example. But my point is I would rather get it all than just be somewhere in between. Like I'd rather really stink or win the Super Bowl, like really stink and get a high draft pick. But I think with the Kings, it's different. You're trying to establish a culture. It's been such a losing culture for so long that you're just trying to turn that around. You're tired of hearing that it's the longest streak in NBA history without making the playoffs, even though I just brought it up right there. My bad. But you're probably tired of hearing that. And at some point, yeah, you do have to establish a culture. And then you can get to the point where you swing for the fences. But boy, are they making moves. I don't even think they want to make the play-in. I mean, they want to make the play-in, but this is more of like getting to the offs. Now, that's a little difficult if you don't know the format. 1 through 6 guaranteed, and then 6 through 10 they play each other for a play-in or whatever. And then the two teams that advance, then you have your top 8 seeds. So it might be a little bit to ask. I'm not going crazy and saying that they're going to get into the top 6. But the way that they're making moves, all of a sudden, you look at this depth chart, Kings fans. De'Aaron Fox with Davion Mitchell backing him up. Kevin Huerter now coming over from Atlanta with Malik Monk backing him up. And I'll get to Malik Monk in the next segment. And then you got Harrison Barnes, of course, probably his last year. But you got Terrence Davis backing him up. Keegan Murray, your top 4 or the number 4 overall draft pick with Trey Lyles backing him up. And then Domantas Sabonis, who you got from Indiana with Rashawn Holmes backing him up. And all the guys that I mentioned that are backing these guys up are averaging double digits. This is a very formidable team. And if Mike Brown has learned from his time in Cleveland, from his time in LA, and most importantly, hopefully he learned a lot being an assistant for Steve Kerr and watching those championships and hopefully learning from Kerr. and seeing just the organization in general, how it should be ran, how you can establish a winning culture. But man, oh man, between Monk now and Herter, the Kings are, and a number 4 overall pick, the Kings are looking to win. I mean, this should be a much better season for you Kings fans. You're listening to Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. If you want to call in or text in, 916-339-1140. When it comes to Herter, this is what you want to hear, Kings fans. When you make a trade, Gary St. Jean, former GM for the Warriors, former coach for the Kings. He talks like this. I love that guy. But I was having a beer with that guy one time when I was at my old job. And he sat down and he said, Zachariah, oftentimes GMs look at other teams rather than their own most of the time. Anyways, his point was GMs are constantly looking at what other teams are doing and what sort of personnel are getting moved. And after the Hawks made that deal, it's not that Herter was expendable, but he was kind of expendable. I mean, they could have just had him come off the bench. But I'm sure Monty saw that and was like, this is our chance. We got to jump on this. But these are the phrases that you want to hear. Now, this is just one website, but one that I trust. These are the type of phrases that you want to hear about the trade. Okay? This is from CBS Sports. This is a rather puzzling move on Atlanta's part. That's what you want to hear. You don't want to hear this is a puzzling move on the Kings' part. You want to hear it from the other side. What's another one? I'm not sure what the plan is here with the Hawks on this trade. And then they just go down the line about how good of a trade this was for the Kings. And I mean, how'd you feel? Let me bring in my main man, Jay. It's hard to say, kind of like she sells by the seashore. How did you feel when you first got the news?
I'm more of a half glass full type cat anyway, Zach. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always, if people who've been listening to this time slot here on Sacktown Sports for a couple of years, I've always said that the Kings have to do more, and they need to show more oomph. They need to go for it a little more, take the risk versus reward. And I think the Kevon Herter is a step in the right direction when it comes to that. I'll say this. The cat's a young dude. He's got talent. You have him locked up for the next 4 years for $60 million. I think he fits right exactly what the Kings are trying to do to take the next step into, as you said, and every media source and every media analyst and every reporter in the world has talked about over the last 16 years. Yeah, I know. We're trying to get into trying to get into the playoffs. So I think it's a great move. I'm still... And we'll talk about this, further down in the show. We're just breaking this down. I think it's a fantastic move. You gave up nothing. And all due respect to Mo Harkless and I don't Mr. Holiday. And
I don't think a lot of Kings fans are going to be going, I can't believe we had to give him up.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it. And then you go down sticking with this article and just, again, these are the things that you want to hear. It doesn't matter. It's one man's opinion, and who knows how the trade is going to work out. But for the Kings, this is an impressive trade for a front office that has struggled to string together several quality decisions in what feels like forever. Trading Halliburton, I think that further down the line is going to be something that, time will tell. But they obviously were really big on Sabonis, but they were looking to replace Halliburton. They needed to, and they did in a couple of ways. I would say if you took the two guys between Monk and Herter, I think kind of like the combination of that, it's different. But basically, I think in both ways they were trying to replace what they had in Halliburton. Because let's face it, Monty McNair came from Morey's coach, GMing tree or whatever you call it. And what does Morey love more than anything in the world? Shooting. And the Kings lacked shooting until now. They addressed that in a great way in this offseason. And I just can't imagine Kings fans getting news of this trade and being anything other than thrilled. You've got to be, I just read the starting lineup. You've got to be going into this season feeling better than you have in a lot of years. I think that starting lineup is solid, and especially I think part of the Kings' problem over the past few years is that their starting lineup or their roster was not really cognizant of today's style of play. And this starting five, this roster, this is cognizant of the style of play in 2022. You need shooters. You need defense. Now, there's a couple of guys that lack a little bit in defense, but in general, this is going to be, I think, a really fun team to watch. And if nothing else, you'll have that. And I think it's pretty much, I mean, knock on wood, I don't want to curse them, but I think it's pretty much a lock that they make the play-in game.
Oh, come on. Slow your roll now, brother. Slow.
Play-in game?
Your roll. This is coming from a cat that's been blessed with 4 championships in a matter of 8 years, man. Slow your roll now, man.
And now you have the assistant coach,
Don't say playoffs, man. Don't say playoffs.
Playoffs.
Just yet. But I get where you're going. Kevin Huerter, the one thing I appreciate the fact of what Monty has done is he's got younger, right? And he's gotten more athletic. And these are cliches that people throw around all the time. But the fact of the matter is Kevin Huerter is a baller who has shown that he can already do it in the league, and he's still young.
Yeah.
Like he's proven, so to say, but there's probably an uptick. There's probably something else we haven't seen more time. Maybe, he started 60 games last year, but if we lock him in and solidly say, hey, you got 2 more? I mean, excuse me, you're going to start for the next couple years. We're going to give you the opportunity and chance. You're good.
Yeah, Harrison Barnes is the old guy on the squad. Anyways, 916-339-1140. That's phone and text. I heard from a little birdie that the one and only Nick Cattles might be joining the program. He's so hyped. He wants to jump on his day off. Kind of like Friday. How'd you get fired on your day off? Anyways, coming up next, we'll talk about the other accusation, Mr. Malik Monk, and how much I love that. You're listening to Zachariah, Sacktown Sports, right here on 1140. Welcome on back. Sacktown, it's your boy, Zachariah, right here on Sacktown Sports, 1140, filling in for Cattles and Ramie. Man, a lot to get to. Tell you what, I'm crossing my fingers that we get Marcus Thompson, the now famous Marcus Thompson. I knew him when he was like kind of famous, but now he's like full-blown superstar.
Hey, Wardell.
Anyways, Looney just re-signed with the Warriors, so he's got to get to writing. But I said, why don't you write for an hour? This was at like 2:30. I said, why don't you write for an hour? You always got to take a break. He's like, man, I don't take no breaks when I'm writing. I go straight through. But hopefully we'll get Marcus Thompson coming up here at about 3:30. So, yeah, we went over the Huerter trade. And just to break it down just a little bit, he's the guy who gets picked later than he should at the park because he doesn't look the part. Now, I asked my boy Jay before the show started if I could use a certain term. I'm not going to do it, but let's just say he looks a lot like Dante DiVincenzo. You know what I'm saying? Similar kind of look. But he's got a decent vert, good lateral quickness. He gets the sneaky athleticism comments that even though I was a good white basketball player, I didn't even get that. I was so not athletic. But anyways, the point is the guy basically shoots 40% from three. And that is like what you're looking for. And just the transition from that to the signing, Malik Monk. And I remember watching Lakers games this past season and being like, God, this is just awful. It was just like, all these superstars that are aging and it didn't gel. But one guy that the only guy I enjoyed watching, Russell Westbrook, was just unwatchable. Guy would chuck the ball like 500 miles per hour off the backboard. Melo would just catch and shoot. LeBron was amazing, but he looked angry and miserable. Anthony Davis was always in street clothes. But you know who I enjoyed watching? Malik Monk. And the fact that the Kings got him for basically 2 years, $20 million, I mean, that is a bargain. He shot well in college, but his first 3 years in the league was not good. But now he's damn near at 40%. So you went from a team that lacked in shooting to picking up two guys that basically shoot 40%, which is basically the line of whether or not you're a great three-point shooter or not. You're hoping for a Jamal Crawford-esque kind of guy. I love that he was teammates with Fox. That's just great. I saw pictures when the signing came down of them hugging on the sideline. And, I mean, that's just good for camaraderie in the locker room. The fact that they already have time together is great. And, just doing research for the draft on the internet and looking at sites that I respect, he wasn't at the top of people's lists of free agents that were available. It's not like he's some superstar. You're not going to get a superstar for 2 years, $20 million. But what he was at the top of the list of was sleeper free agents, like free agents that aren't at the top of the list, but are at the top of the second list, or like guys that are under the radar. So I just, between the trade and the signing, just a hell of a offseason so far for money. And where they go from here, time will tell. And a lot of this is going to be on Mike Brown and how he, like I said, hopefully he learned a lot from his previous coaching stops. But so far, so good. You got to feel good if you're a Kings fan. A whole hell of a lot better than you did at the end of last season. And we'll get, I'm not going to be positive Pete the entire time, because there is an area that I would like to get into that I don't necessarily agree with. Now, I came on and did some shows pre-draft. And I made it pretty clear who I wanted. And then a guy fell that I didn't even think it was going to be there, that I would have either way. The Keegan Murray, look, I hope it works out great. I've got some pros and I've got some cons. But unfortunately, my cons list is a little bit longer than my pros list. But either way, people are high on him. And it's just, I look at this depth chart now, and not only is it, again, suited for today's NBA, but they're young. And not like too young to the point where, you're like, well, they got to get their feet wet. They're not going to be good right away. No, they're young, like the perfect time to be young. They've tasted enough of the NBA that they're not too raw that you have to worry about it. And they're definitely not long in the tooth where you're going to worry about them kind of fading. They're right in that sweet spot. Maybe a little bit before the sweet spot, but right in that sweet spot. So I think it's going to be an exciting season. And if you're a Kings fan, you got to be on the edge of your seat about it. Now, Jay, you told me we got some sound on this sighting. What do we got?
Yeah, we had my boy Jason Anderson from the Sac B on yesterday, and he kind of spoke to what you were talking about with Malik Monk coming and him pairing with De'Aaron Fox. And could they be a defensive stopper in the backcourt?
Okay.
I don't know at this point what their plan is there. I think that with Dante seemingly being on his way out, they were certainly looking for a starting caliber shooting guard. Malik is a guy who started 37 games for the Lakers last year, shot 39% from three-point range. And he's still a young player. He came out in the same draft as De'Aaron. He was the number 11 pick that year. So young guy, both 24 years old. Malik still has some room to grow, and maybe the biggest thing for him in this equation is an opportunity to grow. And I think there is a good chance that he does move into that starting role next to De'Aaron.
Yeah, well, we'll see. That's the thing about this roster, and it's a good problem to have. It's not the fact that you don't know exactly what the starting lineup's going to be, and maybe training camp and preseason will bear that out, but it's not like it's bad options. You're picking between good, and so that just means your bench is going to be strong no matter what, depending on how they're going to formulate the starting five, and ultimately that's up to Mike Brown. But, yeah, I mean, to me, an exciting day to be a Kings fan, and it's probably been a while since you've been excited. I'm assuming this is as excited as you've been in I don't know how long. But weigh on in. Let me know what you think about both the trade and also the signing. 916-339-1140. That's where you can call in. That's where you can text in. You can watch me sweat under these lights on YouTube. You just got to search Sacktown Sports 1140. That's also where we're at on Twitter. And, we're going to hope for Marcus Thompson coming up here in about, 5 minutes, bottom of the hour, something like that. We're hoping for Marcus Thompson. He's a fantastic writer for The Athletic, and I want to get his thoughts on the Warriors, 4 and 8 years, and I want to know his thoughts on Mike Brown, because he covers the Warriors better than anybody, so he had a front row seat to it. So hopefully we'll talk to him at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to Zachariah, Sacktown Sports, right here, 1140. I ain't mad at you. This would be a perfect song, Jay, in case Marcus Thompson doesn't pick up. I'm going to be like, Marcus, I ain't mad at you. Tupac, kids, go look it up. Welcome on back. It is Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here. Sacktown Sports 1140. Coming up at 3:45, we're going to have a segment called Zachariah's Random Thoughts. You can tell we have not brainstormed this out well enough. We're going to come up with a better name, but basically it's just going to be a bunch of topics, sports topics, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it because there's a bunch of stuff that happens in the world of sports, and I like to get my stuff out there. If you want to join the program, I'm going to get to the text line here in a second because this might be text of the show. If you can beat this one, then I'll send you a shirt or something. But phone line and text line, 916-339-1140. We are seeing if we're going to get Marcus Thompson. He's he's a star, and Kevon Looney just signed with the Warriors, an extension to come back, the world champion Warriors. So he's got a right. And I don't want to interrupt his flow. You know, when you're a writer like that, you got a conscious stream of thoughts or whatever they call it. I wouldn't know. But from the text line, I've been praising the Kings all show. I promise you I am not some optimism homer guy or whatever, because I am going to be a little bit negative when we start talking about the draft a little bit later in the show. I'm not going to be totally negative. I'm going to give pros and cons, but like I said, there's more cons than pros. So just so you don't think that I'm constantly saying things that are nothing but good. But from the text line, if you can beat this text, like I said, I'll send you a shirt. From the 209, I want some of whatever you're smoking if you think the Kings are going to be all that next year. Whoa. First of all, when did trees come into play? First of all, I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. Second of all, I didn't say they were going to be all that. I just think that with the moves that they've made, they're going to be in the play-in for sure. I think that's a lock. Knock on wood. I understand you guys are sensitive. But I read you that starting five. And those players are good. I mean, this roster is good. And the West is not as loaded as the East. If this was in the East, maybe, I'd be a little bit more pessimistic. But I think in the West, I mean, the Lakers didn't even make the play-in last year. How many teams in the West really pump fear into you? The Jazz are fire selling everybody. See, they traded Rudy Gobert. So the Jazz, that means Donovan Mitchell is next. So the Jazz, that's a playoff team that's now bye-bye. I don't know. I think that with the moves that were made, that, I think they're a pretty much a lock for the play-in, and I would have higher aspirations for that. And I know that's crazy, but I think the roster's really good, and I think it's at the perfect age, and I think it's built for today's basketball. I want some of whatever you're smoking. That always makes me think of when Harry Met Sally. You kids probably don't know that, and I'm dating myself even though I'm only 38. But I know When Harry Met Sally. And Billy Crystal. Look it up, kids. But he's sitting at a dinner table, and the woman's making like these, let's call it sexual noises. And there's a lady at another table, and she goes, I'll have what she's having. So anyways, that made me think about that. But yeah, so let's go back over this move, getting Herter. He's, again, right around that 40% threshold from three. And again, I was reading you the recap of the trade. And again, when you hear words like this was a steal, what were the Hawks thinking from when you hear bad things from the other team and good things from your team, then it's always going to make you happy. But he's solid from the outside. And a lot of times guys that are like really good three-point shooters don't have a really good mid-range game. But he's got a great mid-range game, helped by his height. He can pull up and shoot over some guys. He's not necessarily the best defender in the world, like a stopper, but he's gotten better every year that he's been in the league at defense, and he's a good team defender, which is important if you're not a good one-on-one stopper. At least try to be the best that you can in terms of the team sense. He's a hustler, you know. He's got his hands in the passing lanes. He's constantly going after loose balls. He put it like this: he does the most that he can with what he has. So I wouldn't rank him as like an elite defender, but he's above average, which is all you can ask for. The shooting is like, you know, the main thing, but the height is what really helps him. You can't really shoot over him. So, you know, I just think matching it up with everything else, because when the Kings made the decision that basically they were going to build around De'Aaron Fox, I think maybe some people in this day and age scratch their head because he's not the best shooter from three. He's obviously electric and amazing. I loved him in college. He was one of my favorite players to watch. But he didn't have shooting around him. And now he does. And that makes a huge difference. A huge difference for your team. That's why I'm making such a big deal about this, is that the roster was not built to win around De'Aaron Fox. But if you're going to keep him and that's going to be your franchise guy, and then you have Domantas Sabonis as your other guy, you need to fill the rest of the roster in with shooting. And that's what they did this year. So we'll see. But let's hear from Avery Johnson. I got a story on Avery Johnson, by the way.
Well, for the Sacramento Kings, you know, with their new coach, Mike Brown, obviously they got to make some moves to try to end this, 16-year drought of being in the playoffs. It feels like it's been forever that Sacramento hasn't made it to the playoffs. So with Mike Brown coming over after winning a championship as an assistant with the Warriors, they're just trying to fill in with quality pieces. They signed Malik Monk to a 2-year, $16 million contract. Now they make the trade for Herter, who now is going to provide some quality depth for them, especially at the wing position. He's gotten some playoff experience with the Atlanta Hawks. So as Mike Brown tries to change the culture, tries to change the competitive spirit in the landscape for the Sacramento Kings, moves like this are very important.
Very important. And that's, thank you, courtesy of CBS Sports right there. Avery Johnson. Yeah, I can't tell the whole story. It's a little bit too long. But let's just say when I was a server about 10 years ago and he was with the Mavericks, I waited on him and his coaching staff, and he was hilarious. But let's just say it had to do with food and stereotypes and blah, 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 blah. I'll tell Jay off air. So, yeah, and the thing is, the move, when you look at it in a vacuum, it improves. Basically, you gave up nothing. Again, like Jay said, no disrespect to Harkless and
Mr. Holiday.
Yeah, Mr. Holiday. Well, there's like
Holiday.
five. There's like
Yeah.
five of them. So,
Jay Holiday.
Yeah, Jay Holiday.
The bed.
But I mean, those two combined, I don't think are going to produce what Herter's going to. And, you know, keep in mind, he played in Atlanta with Trae Young. And Trae Young's a pretty dominant ball guy, so he's used to that. I mean, if, you know, Fox wants to go crazy or whatever, he'll just kick it. It's almost like, and I'm not making this comparison, so don't tell me you want to smoke what I smoke or whatever. I'm not saying that this is the same. But in terms of, and especially not because Fox can't shoot like Steph, but it's almost like Herter's the Clay. You know, Fox can do his thing, kick it to Herter, bang, you know? And they almost have a similar build. Now, Clay's a much better defender, but in terms of length and being able to shoot the ball, I'm not saying you have a Splash Brothers situation on your hands. I'm saying it's kind of similar in the style, not in the skill level, in the style.
Okay, I was getting ready to say, man, you bringing this Bay Area stuff up, coming down the sack, man, and really bringing some things that we need to have a discussion about. Did you just compare Kevin Herter to Klay Thompson? I get what you're saying. The makeup, the build of Kevin Herter resembles Klay Thompson. But, I mean, come on now.
I made it very clear.
All right, I'm just saying now, I'm going to have to pump your brakes. This is the second time I've had to ask you to pump your brakes on this show today.
I even said, don't text me, what am I smoking? I did not say the same skill level. This is not a Splash Brothers situation. I'm saying when you think about Herter and you think about Clay, just in terms of body style and being able to shoot it, and that's all I'm saying. Okay, should I have said poor man's Splash Brothers? Because that feels like an insult. I didn't want to say that.
Well, Kevin Herter shoots 39% from the 3-point last year, 38.9. I always round up.
Me too.
Where I come
Me
from,
too.
we round up, brother.
Yeah, it's
if
easier.
I owe you 67, I'm gonna give you 70, right? And so I get what you're trying. I get what I guess what you're trying to mimic. What you're saying is he is a very comfortable two. Excuse me. He is a two that you feel comfortable enough to match with De'Aaron Fox.
He's
understandable.
Like I said, he was playing with.
Trae Young.
He was playing with Trae Young, who's ball dominant, and so a lot of his time was waiting to catch and shoot, just like Clay does when Steph's doing his thing. So when Fox is doing his thing, Herter's just gonna kick it and do his thing. And the contract that you mentioned that doesn't kick in until next year, which is part of the trade recap that I was reading, is a big reason why the Hawks did it. It was almost like a salary dump, but 15 per. In this NBA?
It's a steal.
Did you see
for a 23-year-old young developing shooting guard? I get you.
Did you see these extensions that these guys are $50 million a year? 15 is chump change.
Yeah.
It's like minimum wage.
That's
now.
MLE almost, yeah. Mid-level exception. I understand.
All right, so we lost Marcus Thompson. I kind of predicted that, but hopefully we find him in the next couple of hours. Coming up next, we're going to do something that we have not really creatively named Zachariah's Random Thoughts, but we're just going to go through stories of the sports world because I want to touch on a bunch of stuff, not enough to do a whole segment on, but just a bunch of rapid fire stuff. So we'll do that next. If you want to join in, 916-339-1140. That's both phone and text. You're listening to Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here. Sacktown Sports, 1140. Welcome on back, Sacramento. It's your boy, Zachariah, right here. Sacktown Sports 1140, filling in for Cattles and Ramie. Got corrected by my producer, Jay. Apparently, I said, Ramie? My bad, Ramie. I will never mess that up again. You know why? You know what the trick is to do that? You spell it out phonetically. Phonetically means the way that it sounds. Anyways, it's Zachariah filling in for those two wonderful gentlemen. If you want to join the program, either via phone or text, 916-339-1140. So, at the top of the hour, we're going to have the boss and the main host of Cattles and Ramie, Nick Cattles. He's so pumped up about the trade today that he's just got to get his voice out there. And I feel him. Something like that happens, even if you're on vacation, you know what? I'm calling in. I actually see that frequently on radio shows. Guys are out, but something huge happens. Like Boomer Esiason in New York one time, I remember. He had to call in. He had to get it off his chest. So I understand. So Nick's going to join me at the top of the hour. Until then, we're still efforting Marcus Thompson, but we're going to do a little segment that we need to rename ASAP here. But right now, it's just Zachariah's random thoughts. I know. We need to work on it. We will work on it, I promise you. All right, so we're going to start with this. Did you guys see that baseball brawl? And do we have audio on that, Jay, or no? No. Huge baseball brawl. I mean, it was one of those scenarios where the teams had just played each other too much. You know, anytime teams play each other, like, frequently in a small space of time, then bad things happen. Like, baseball's so weird. All the unwritten rules, I'll never understand it. Like, there's no other sport where it's like that. In baseball, it's like, oh, if you can hit them, but you can't hit them too high, or you can't. Well, now, you used to not be able to flip the bat. That was like taunting. But now, that's loosened up. You can flip the bat. But there's like other stuff. I can't even think of all of them right now, but there's like 100 unwritten rules. And players get really butthurt. Like, I remember one time, it was the last game of the year, and someone broke an unwritten rule. The whole offseason went by. And spring training. And then the next year, the guy got hit. He got plunked. Because that's how you send the message that you broke the unwritten rule. The whole offseason went by. They held the grudge for like 6 months. Baseball's like the only place where you get away with that stuff. But anyways, 12 were suspended in this Angels-Mariners brawl. And I just feel like, I feel bad saying this, but I miss the brawl. You know, everything's gotten soft. Go watch old clips of basketball games. People would get players would get hit in the stands, and there wouldn't even be a foul call. People would get clotheslined. No technical. Now if you breathe on a guy, you get the old heave-ho. I miss the brawls. I know that's bad, and I'm not even an MMA guy. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So it's not even that I like the violence, but I mean, I kind of like the violence. Not like anything too brutal, but I like that they scruffed it up. I hadn't seen that in so long. It brought me back to my childhood, because this was not one of those, oh, hold me back, hold me back, hold me back. There was kicks getting thrown and punches being thrown. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that up and get that off my chest because I loved it. I really did love it. And I love it in hockey. In hockey, they're like, all right, fine, whatever. You guys want to fight? Throw your gloves down and have at it. And then after a while, they finally break it up once it gets too out of control. But that's the way it should be. Not like baseball. You know, like in baseball, the whole passive-aggressive hitting the guy instead of actually, you know, just getting it out, letting them go at it, and then you're good to go. Instead, people are throwing at people's heads. It's easier the way they do it in hockey. They let them get it out of their system, and then they keep playing. Anyways, just wanted to say that. Brought me back to my childhood. Seriously, though, look up old clips of basketball highlights and how physical they used to be and what the difference is now. So the other random thing I wanted to get out, because I was driving in thinking to myself, Sacramento is a town that has the Kings, right? But no professional baseball team, no professional football team. So I wanted to put this on the poll at Sacktown Sports 1140 on Twitter. I want you to go vote. Football fans of Sacktown, when it comes to football, who do you root for? Raiders, Niners, another team. I don't watch football. Basketball fans of Sacktown. Now, there should be a landslide, but the Kings have not been good and the Warriors have been good. So I just want to know what the percentages are. Who do you root for? Kings, Warriors, another team. I don't watch basketball. And then baseball fans of Sacktown, as there's news of, I don't know if you saw, but rumors of the A's following the Raiders and going to Las Vegas, which would just break my heart that Oakland would go from having 3 teams of the major sports, having the A's, the Raiders, and the Warriors, to no teams in Oakland. I mean, I would just be, it would break my heart. It really would. It would break my heart. But I just wonder, up here, the rumor has it is it's a lot of Niners fans, obviously a lot of Kings fans, and a lot of Giants fans. But I'm just wondering, who do you root for? Giants, A's, another team? I don't watch baseball. So anyways, on Twitter, at Sacktown Sports 1140, do me a favor and tell me who you root for. Vote on those things because I'm curious. All right, next one. Tyreek Hill said, say again? Oh, sound. Okay, yeah. Here's Tyreek Hill on comparing his old quarterback to his new quarterback.
As far as accuracy-wise, I'm going with Tua all day. So which one would you rather have? The deep ball where you got to scramble around the field to try to go find it? Or do you want that accuracy to hit you right in the bread basket on the run?
I want it to hit me right in the bread basket, just like I did in the Buffalo Bills game, and take it 70. And the rest is history.
And again, this is not a shot at anybody.
Right.
This is just stuff that had to be said.
It needed to be said.
It needed to be said.
Now, this blew up on the internet because obviously Tua, high pick for the Dolphins, but has not done anything close to what Patrick Mahomes has done. Tyreek won a Super Bowl with Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs, and he's considered to be, if not the best, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I don't think Tua is held in even the top 15 in the NFL, top 20 in the NFL. But I kind of hear what Tyreek is saying because everybody's saying Tua can't get the ball down the field. And Patty Mahomes throws an absolute rocket. So they're like, how could you possibly say that you'd rather have Tua over Patty? But he makes it clear. He's not saying that he thinks Patty Mahomes has a stronger arm. I mean, he's not saying that Tua has a stronger arm or a better arm. He's saying that he has a more accurate arm. And for him receiving, he prefers to catch it short and then run around and, he's nicknamed the cheetah, use his cheetah-like speed. So I kind of understand what he's saying, but I also, people take the little thing out of the interview and then just make that the headline, and then the internet is set on fire. So I kind of understand it, and he probably should have phrased it a little bit differently, but because if you're Patty Mahomes, you have the ability to throw the cannon all the way down the field, and then you also have the ability to do the little dump off that Tua can do. So, and Tua doesn't have the ability to throw the ball all the way down the field like Patty Mahomes does. This was interesting. So Jimmy G is in a very interesting situation in San Francisco. It's going to be like a 17 or 20-something million dollar backup as of right now.
27 there, Zach. $27 million.
27. See, I had the 20 and the 17, so yeah, put it together. Okay. So anyways, Marcus Bennett, one of the two, played with Jimmy G in New England and called him a female dog. And I found that to be interesting because, first of all, the Bennett brothers speak their mind no matter what. So I'm not terribly shocked. But Jimmy G, he was talking about their time in New England. This is when Brady got hurt in week 1 against the Chiefs, and he was out for the year. Jimmy G got him to 11-5. They didn't make the playoffs, but he got him to 11-5. Most years, 11-5 gets you into the playoffs. So I thought that he played admirably. And I just, anytime I see Jimmy G, anytime I see a player call another player a female dog, that always makes my eyebrows go up. But specifically in this instance, because I have no idea what the 49ers are planning on doing with Jimmy G. I have no idea. Anyways, at the top of the hour, we're going to talk to the man in charge, the one and only Nick Cattles. He will give me his opinion on the trade. It sounds like he's fired up if he wants to call in on his day off. 916-339-1140. That's phone and text. You're listening to Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie on Sacktown Sports 1140.
Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140. Sacramento has a new tag team in the afternoons.
You're talking to the original tag team of ugly pukes here.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
I'll send a T-shirt to the first person that can name this song. I love this song, off one of the best albums ever. Anyways, welcome on in, 4 o'clock hour.
You got a plethora of teas. What's going on, bro?
Huh?
You have like a plethora of teas all of a sudden?
Well, I got a bunch when I was at the last station.
Oh, okay,
I just
okay.
kept them in a box anyways.
Okay.
It's just fun to give away stuff. Anyways, welcome on into the 4 o'clock hour. It is Zachariah right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. I am filling in for Cattles and Ramie. And do we have them? Okay, so coming up at about 4:15, I want to talk about this Mike Brown hire. And if you want to join the program at any time, 916-339-1140. That's both phone and text message. But right now, it's the boss of this place. Hopefully he's been listening and he thinks I've been doing a good job. Actually, hopefully he hasn't been listening because he's on vacation. So he should be unwinding and unplugged. But you can follow him on Twitter at Nick C Radio, as you probably already know. Co-host of the Cattles and Ramie show. Nick, what's cracking?
Patiently waiting. How do I get my T-shirt?
Attaboy! I'll leave it here in the bullpen.
Come on, man. 50 and M, you know I got to know that. Come on.
Oh, man.
No doubt, Patience. That's a great song.
That's a great song and an unbelievable album. 50 Cent hit the ground running on that. But, Nick, you had to call in. How did you? I mean, I feel like if you're a Kings, I don't think there's any Kings fan out there that doesn't feel great about this trade. What were your initial thoughts when you saw it?
Loved it. I mean, I've been talking, and JJ behind the glass can attest to this. I've been talking about Kevin Huerter for the last few weeks, and I think he's a really good piece. Look, is this a guy that's going to make you an instant contender? Of course not, but that's not the focus here. I mean, he's somebody that can score at all three levels. He's not great defensively, but he's okay defensively. He's a playmaker with the basketball if you need him to be off the pick and roll. And most importantly, Zachariah, he's a shooter, man. And this is what that team needs. I mean, when we talk about the Kings and what they need to add shooting. And now when you have Huerter and you have Monk and you have Keegan Murray, you've now added 3 legitimate offensive players, 3 guys that can score, like I said, at each level, and 3 guys that will be able to shoot the basketball. So I think it's a great get by Monty, especially what they had to give up, which was pretty much nothing. I mean, Justin Holiday and look, Mo Harkless, he's a competitor and he plays tough defensively and all that, but he's Mo Harkless, let's be honest. And that first-round pick is protected, so I love the protections on the pick as well. So I thought it was a no-brainer for Monty.
Yeah, and what's funny, just looking at the depth chart right now, is there's so many different people that I feel like can start, and it's not one of those things where it's a bad thing. It's a good thing, because whoever doesn't start is going to come off the bench. How do you see him playing out like the rotation between Huerter and Monk and Barnes and Davis? I mean, Barnes has got to be a guaranteed starter, right? But between Huerter, Monk, Davis, how do you see those starting pieces fitting together?
Yeah, I mean, I think you insert Huerter immediately as your starting 2 guard. I think your starting backcourt is Fox and Huerter. Herter's a better defender, as I said, than Monk is. And, he's got better size. He's 6'7" or so. He can play the 2, he can play the 3. So I think you put him alongside Fox, and now you don't have to worry about your backcourt being so small, which was one of the things we talked about with the Malik Monk signing. I like the Malik Monk signing. I really do. But as I said yesterday on the show with Ramie, I would like it even more if he was your 6-man microwavable offense off the bench. Mm-hmm. And, I guess Monty was kind of feeling the same way I was feeling. So you bring in Huerter. He's a better all-around player than Monk is. He's bigger than Monk is, so I think he's a nice fit in that backcourt. And now you've got Monk, who I think can come off the bench and be that 6th man and give you that offense, and he's got the chemistry with De'Aaron Fox. So I would imagine you're going to see Huerter start for this team, and Monk will be the second guy. Now, Mike Brown will not say that. I doubt it. They'll want to have a competition, quote-unquote. But I think you're starting 5 right now. If the season tipped off tonight, which I still don't know if there's going to be more moves, I wouldn't be shocked if there were more moves. I mean, you still have the Barnes money, you still have the Holmes money, you still have your future first-round picks aside from next year's because of this trade. But if you're starting tonight, I think it's Fox at the 1, it's Huerter at the 2, it's Barnes at the 3, it's Keegan Murray at the 4, and it's Domas at the 5.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. I mean, I Monk ended up starting a lot of the games last year because the Lakers were such a dumpster fire. But yeah, I mean, he does have more of the style of play of a guy that, if you're down, he comes and gives you some fire off the bench. So yeah, I agree with that. You're listening to Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. If you want to text in, I want to read you a text here in a minute. 916-339-1140. I'm joined by the man of Cattles and Ramie, Nick Cattles right now. But I've got people on the text line, Nick, telling me, let's extend Monty. And I wouldn't be totally opposed to that. But what I want to ask you is, why did it take him a couple of years? He came from the Morey tree, which is all about shooting, as we know. Why do you think it took him a couple of years? Just not like the right fit, or didn't have like the right guy? Like, why did it take him a while to get shooting around Fox?
So there's different philosophies of management, right? So you see somebody like Danny Ainge who goes in, and today down in Utah, he immediately pulls the trigger on a Rudy Gobert trade.
Yeah.
And he says,
when's Mitchell going?
Mitchell could be gone soon after, right? So, Ainge is not wasting time. He understands the mission. The mission is Gobert and Mitchell are not working together. They don't necessarily love each other, so I got to pull the trigger and make some moves. So, he's not worried about it. But when you come into a program, you can handle it either one of two ways. You can either kind of burn it to the ground right away, or you can kind of sit back and evaluate what you have, what pieces you've got, and you can sit back and say to yourself, okay, well, let me evaluate this team, and let me watch this team night in and night out, and let me really figure out what we have. And let me, of course I know who De'Aaron Fox is when I take the job, and I know the basics of this team when I take the gig. But let me truly, find out what I've got here. The second thing, Zachariah, is let's not forget, man, it takes two to tango, as they say, and we don't know what Monty tried to pull off before this. We don't know if Monty's tried to bring shooting in and he couldn't come to an agreement with another team on a deal. And as I said, when Dante DiVincenzo was, just kind of let go and allowed to walk away, I know there were a lot of Kings fans, and they rightfully should feel this way because of the history, but there were a lot of Kings fans that were like, oh, here we go again. Dante's just walking. And as I said, let's see if the other shoe drops here, because you never know how things are going to get pieced together, and you don't know about the conversations. And now, it's 48 hours later, we're talking about Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, which I think obviously answers the question of why Dante DiVincenzo is not on this team. So, there's got to be some patience, and you've got to make sure that you strike when it makes sense. And, when you look at the deals that Monty has made so far this offseason, John Hollinger, I tweeted this out earlier today, his board evaluation numbers for Malik said that he should be making around $16 million a year. They get in for a whole lot less than that. And then you look at this Huerter deal, and you don't give up much at all to bring in Kevin Huerter. So I think it's just making sure you got the assets, and when you have the assets, you've got to strike at the right time. It's not just about striking. It's about making the move at the right time. And I think Monty has done that now 2 times in a row with the 2 pieces he's brought in.
Now, I want to get to your Celtics. Anybody that follows you on Twitter at Nick C Radio knows that you're a diehard Celtics fan. So I want to ask you about the Malcolm Brogdon trade. But before we get to that, what did you make of the Mike Brown hire between, getting a guy that you feel pretty safe with, that has a lot of experience and can establish a winning culture, and maybe he's learned a lot along the way in terms of having a head coaching job in Cleveland and in LA, kind of it not working in either place, but then being an assistant and being around the winning culture that is the Warriors, versus getting some upshot assistant coach that doesn't have the experience, so it's kind of a risk reward. How did you feel about the Mike Brown hire?
I mean, I liked it. I think out of the choices that they had, look, I was a Kenny Atkinson guy. Atkinson pulled himself out of the conversation. He did not want to come to Sacramento, so he eliminated himself. I thought Atkinson would have been a good hire. But when you look at the other guys that we were talking about, I thought Mike Brown was a fine hire. I mean, he's got experience with working with big name players, so he has experience with handling personalities and egos and managing them, and he has had to deal with LeBron and Kobe in his past. He's somebody who has experience. He's a defensive-minded guy, which, this team needs to be defensively better, which I think even with the Monk addition and, of course, the Herder addition today, I still think there's a legitimate question about how good this defense can be, and Mike Brown will hopefully help that. So, I thought it really depends on what you're trying to do, right? What you're trying to accomplish. And with this team right now, I think it's rather obvious whether Monty wants to tell us or not that he had a mandate put on him. They want to win. And everybody in this city wants to win. I want to win. You want to win. We all want to win. And, bringing in a young guy and throwing him into that fire for the first time is always a question. You don't know how that guy is going to be and how he's going to perform. So, did they go with maybe a safer route? I would say yes, but I think the safer route in this instance makes a lot of sense given the circumstances that they're dealing with.
All right, let's get to your almost world champions. I know that hurt. I'm sorry about that, Nick.
You had to take a shot. You had to take a shot.
No. That wasn't. I was legitimately. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't often say this on air. I'm not a Warriors fan, Nick. So, anyways, I was not taking a shot. I swear. But huge deal for your Celtics today, because this guy is exactly what you were missing in the Warriors, championship finals series. So what did you make? Deal with the Pacers. You bring in Malcolm Brogdon to the Celtics. And what does that mean in terms of the dynamics of Tatum, Smart, Brown, and now Brogdon?
Yeah, so I think the deal, it's pretty much a no-brainer to me as far as what they gave up. Brogdon makes a really good amount of money, $22+ million over the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. But he's a 19-5-5 guy when he's healthy. He's 6'5". He defends multiple positions. He's a playmaker, which is what this team really, really needed. He also is a good shooter. I mean, you go back a couple of years ago, he was one of those 50, 40, 90 guys. So he can shoot the basketball as well, which is just crucial to this team right now. And when you look at what happened in that series, Zachariah, I know some people will say it's an excuse. I say it's a reason. They ran out of gas. They asked a lot of Brown and Tatum and Horford throughout the year. Those guys played major minutes, especially Tatum. And, they asked Tatum to not only be the number one playmaker on this team, but the number one scorer. He also has to play defense every possession. He's got to play 40-plus minutes in the playoffs. And so, this will hopefully, for the Celtics, it will lighten the load on Tatum now that you have another playmaker. And you've got Marcus Smart, Derek White, and Brogdon, three guys who can make plays. And Brogdon is that, I picked the Warriors to win that series. I picked the Warriors in 7. And the reason why I picked them was because I kept going back to the word execution. And, watching the Celtics, they just would have these 2 to 3 4-minute stretches. And you saw that in the series, these 3 to 4 minute stretches where they looked like they forgot how to play offense. And so they needed somebody who is that steady veteran hand who will bring the ball up and say, everybody take a deep breath. Let's set up our offense. Let's run the play. And I think, when they get in one of those tough stretches, Brogdon is the guy that they will go to and say, all right, Malcolm, calm this down, run a play, and let's get something good. So it was a desperate need. And, now with the signing of Danilo Gallinari, this team is 10 deep now. It's not 6 or 7 deep. It's 10 deep. So I think Brad Stevens has done a really good job since he took over as GM of that team.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I like them as the favorites. But yeah, anyways, it's been a pleasure. Kind of weird interviewing the boss, you know what I mean? But I hope I pulled it off as best.
I'm going to tell you straight. I'm going to tell you straight. There was a good 10 minutes this morning, and JJ will absolutely believe this. There was a solid 10 minutes when I saw this Herder trade that I looked at my wife and said, I'm going to go in today. I'm going to do this show. I'm going to do the show with Zachariah. This is going to be a thing. And Zachariah, she shot me a look, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just do a phone call.
Oh, you got one of those. I don't even need to say it out loud.
Yep.
Yeah, I got you. All right, well, it's Nick Cattles. You know him, program director, afternoon co-host of Cattles and Ramie. He's at Nick C Radio on Twitter. Nick, I'm glad you got it off your chest. I'm glad you didn't make your wife too unhappy, and enjoy the rest of your day off.
Well, look, this is just the beginning. I'm back on Wednesday. I'm going to have 1,000 takes on this. And I also, by the way, I want my T-shirt. So put it in the mail by the end of business.
I got you. I will. All right, Nick. Have a good one.
All right, brother.
There you go.
All right, see you.
Nick Cattles. Yeah, man. Heck of a trade for for Boston. They're going to be very much improved. All right. What we got coming up next? Jay, what do we got? Oh, yeah, we got to do general NBA offseason. We've been focusing on the Kings. We got to do general. It's been crazy. This Brooklyn Nets thing, I could spend 4 hours just on that. 916-339-1140. That's phone and text. You're listening to Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here. Sacktown Sports, 1140.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sacktown Sports, 1140. It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Welcome on back, Sacramento. It's your boy, Zachariah, filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here. Sacktown Sports, 1140, as you heard the deep voice man say. Always wanted to do that, man. He gets paid just to record at home in his underwear. He doesn't have to entertain. He just has to read off of a piece of paper and he gets cashed out.
That was pre-COVID. Now everybody doing that post-COVID.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody's using an excuse. Call in, text in 916-339-1140. That is calling and texting. Got some interesting texts right here from the 916. You asked why it took Monty so long. He had to start with bad contracts he couldn't unload, and the reputation that management was so messed up could be part of the reason that Monty had to navigate. Chris the mom. Apparently she's an avid texter. Chris the mom, I got you. Yeah, I know. And I'm acting like it was a decade. You know, it wasn't. It's been, this is his third year, or this is going to be his fourth year? This is going to be his third year? Yeah, I mean, you know, that's not a long time to turn around, you know, damn near 2 decades of futility. So, we've been focusing heavily on the Kings offseason, and rightfully so. We are the home of the Kings here. But we've got to get into the general offseason. And I could go over all the transactions if you want. There's not a bunch of terribly interesting ones. You know, David Stern, God rest his soul, and now Adam Silver wanted to put an emphasis on teams keeping their hometown players. So, you know, teams in markets that are not so hot, your Miami Heats, your Los Angeles Lakers, your New York Knicks, they're never going to have a hard time keeping their players. But small town teams, oftentimes they stink, so they have a high pick, and then the player turns into a superstar, and then as soon as he becomes a free agent, he bolts. Well, Adam Stern didn't want that and obviously passed the torch over to Adam Silver, and Adam Silver didn't want to do that. And boy, has it worked. Because if you look at a lot of the offseason, these guys that were free agents, quote unquote, all of them re-upped. Denver, Phoenix, where else? Memphis, John Morant with Memphis.
Chicago, Zach LaVine.
Chicago.
Washington, Bradley Beal.
Chicago's pretty big. Washington's pretty big. I'm talking more about the Memphises and the, Utah.
About Denver.
Utah before they blew it up now, but Donovan Mitchell, yeah, Denver, two-time MVP. Yeah, so it's interesting to see that. Not a lot of guys are bolting. But if you need any intrigue, you only need one team. This is not a small market. And they're not even keeping their guys. But this Brooklyn Nets fiasco, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. So just to recap, Kevin Durant loses to the Warriors. This is about 5-6 years ago. Loses to the Warriors in 7 games after being up 3-1 with the Thunder. The Warriors had set the record for most regular season wins in a season. And then Michael Jordan and Pippen wore those shirts that don't mean a thing if you don't get that ring. Warriors are up 3-1. Draymond Green kicks LeBron James in the nether regions. Gets suspended for Game 5. They lose Game 6. Then there's the block heard round the world from LeBron on Andre Iguodala. And then Kyrie hits the 3. And the Cavs come back from 3-1 and beat the Warriors. Offseason hits. All of the Warriors players travel to the Hamptons. Recruit Kevin Durant. He signs with them. They win back-to-back titles. He gets hurt. Kevin Durant, as you know, lives on the internet and is hearing all these things like you needed to join the best team in the league in order to get a ring. He's super sensitive, and he bolts, which was turning out to be the dumbest thing that he could have possibly done. Who knows how many titles they could have won if he had stuck with the Warriors. And I don't get why players care about what the media and fans say. I wouldn't give a damn. You know what I'd tell them? Let's say they got like 5 or 6, 7 rings, whatever. I would just flash my hands anytime somebody said something like, oh, you needed to join. Okay, you can think that if you want. I know he even has one of my favorite quotes. I forget what the context was, but he goes, you know who I am? I'm Kevin Durant. I just love how, I don't know, matter of fact that is. But, I mean, so he let it get to him, so he wanted to prove that he could do it on his own, and he's not really doing it on his own because he ends up joining Kyrie in Brooklyn. They get James Harden. COVID hits. There's a mandate in New York. Kyrie refuses to get the vaccine, so he sits out all the home games, but then he plays the road games. James Harden's had enough of it, forces himself out, goes to Philadelphia. They make it to the playoff game. They make it to the actual 8-team playoff portion. They get swept by the Celtics. Offseason hits. Kyrie says he wants to be traded because he wanted an extension. The Nets are like, look, we've had enough of it because the year before, if you remember, Kyrie just took off time for like a birthday and he was just gone from the team and didn't even tell him until later did they find out where he was. So, anyways, now there's this whole fiasco, and now Kevin Durant's demanding a trade. I mean, if this trade goes down, it's going to be the biggest trade since, I don't even know, Kareem? It's just insanity. The soap opera over there is insane, and I think what really got to him, what pushed him over the edge, was the Warriors winning the championship. Nobody was rooting for Boston in that finals more than Kevin Durant. He's got to just be kicking himself for leaving the Dubs. And I was one of the guys that said the Warriors should have appreciated Kevin Durant more because Draymond was like, well, you know, we won before you and we'll win after you, and boy, was he right. But if they had just figured that out, you could have been a dynasty, one of the biggest dynasties in the world. They're already talking dynasty with the Warriors now. Think about if they had won in the years in between. Oh, anyways, I'll get more into it later, but it's just a complete soap opera. 916-339-1140. That's phone and text. Coming up next, Scott Reese, voice of the Stanford Cardinal. What is this? Pac-12 now going back to Pac-10 because UCLA and USC is going to travel all the way to the East Coast, join the, the Big Ten? Now it's like the Big 40? We'll talk about it. Coming up next, Zachariah, right here, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Cattles and Ramie. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140. Just two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting.
It's Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140.
Welcome on back. It is Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here, Sacktown Sports 1140. If you want to join the program, tons of people texting in. 916-339-1140. That's 916-339-1140. Lots of good stuff so far today. The boss man called in, had to get it off his chest, gave us the scoop that he actually told his wife that he was going to come in and do the whole show. She shot him a glance, and he said, actually, maybe I'll just call in for a segment. So that's what happened, but that was a lot of fun. And, yeah, tons more to get to. We can just, we're efforting Scott Reese because I'm not sure if you've been living under a rock, but both USC and UCLA are planning on leaving the Pac-12 for the Big Ten to go play games in, Michigan and Ohio, because that makes a lot of sense when you're in California. My thoughts on this are as follows. I understand that everything evolves. What I don't get is why you can't just keep all the teams that are geographically, easy for me to say, make that a division and just have all these superpowers and then just expand the playoffs. But we will ask our next guest. We got Scott Reese. He is on Twitter at Stanford Voice, best-selling author, of Where They Were Then, Emmy winner. And most importantly, as Stanford Voice would tell you, he's the Stanford play-by-play. Scott, how are you? It's been a while. I miss you, bud.
It has been a minute. I'm doing great. How you doing?
No complaints. Just up here in Sacramento doing my thing.
Beautiful.
College football is perplexing in how much it changes. Yeah. I think that's sport. I mean, you could talk about football and them kind of lightening, well, every sport where they kind of have lightened the rules. And so, like in football, you can barely touch the quarterback. You can only hit him in like a, 4-foot spot. DBs can't hold the wide receivers. You can't hit guys, so football's changed a little bit in that sense. But I think over my lifetime, nothing has changed more than college football. When you saw this news that UCLA and USC are going to now go cross country and leave the Pac-12, making it back to being the Pac-10, what were your initial thoughts?
Blown away. The initial thought is absolute shock and awe, right? Didn't see this coming now. It's a bombshell on so many levels. When you stop and, think about it, and now we've all sort of had 24 hours to put it into perspective, I think it's, akin to, I guess, a lot of the things we see in politics these days, right? You're shocked, but you're not surprised. Because when you really think about it, you know how the sport is going. You know what the NIL runaway freight train has done to the sport in the last year or so. And I think we all kind of surmised that eventually we would be building toward, the super conference model. And it was becoming more and more clear that was going to start and maybe end with the Big Ten and the SEC. So I don't think anybody expected it now, but, if you had asked me, what I thought about this happening at some point in the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think I probably would have had a more measured response. But yesterday was a bombshell, no question.
Yeah, I mean, nothing surprises me, and college football is so complicated in terms of why stuff goes where. And I know my father always told me, follow the money. So I know it has to do with money, but I don't understand why you can't just, if you're going to do it like this, divide the country into 4 separate spots by geography and make each of those a conference. The top 4 go, expand the playoffs. I just don't get why it has to get all murky and weird where these kids, think about these kids that are technically, I say technically, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but supposed to be students too. And now they're taking 5-hour plane rides, 10 hours round trip, and expected to know their playbook and the game plan and plus study. I mean, it seems like it shouldn't be allowed.
My friend.
I know. I'm innocent and ignorant.
Look, you're preaching to the choir. Like, this is nothing short of awful, right? Everything about, I don't want to say everything, but so much of what's gone on with this NIL stuff in the last year is, in my opinion, awful. The sport is becoming a shell of what it once was. It's not amateur athletics anymore. The student-athlete idea, has pretty much been chucked out the window. Now, that said, at my school, that's not the case. And with specifically where Stanford is involved, there are going to be some really, really interesting decisions that are going to have to be made pretty soon on that front, because they do still value the academic piece. In fact, it's more important to them than the athletic piece. So, Stanford is a unique case, and there are other schools, and I think Cal is one of them. Where they certainly still put a lot of eggs in the academic basket, and so they got to make decisions. But if you're talking about major college football, that ship has sailed. It's not amateurism anymore. It's strictly follow the money, and the money is in the Big Ten and the SEC with those TV contracts.
Scott Reese joins me. He is the Stanford play-by-play. Right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. I want to ask you about this in terms of the Pac-12, which will now go back to being the Pac-10. What does that mean for that conference? Are the voting committee for the playoffs, let's say Stanford beats all other 9 teams. Is it possible that they could miss the playoff because they could say, well, they didn't play good enough competition, even though they, are they becoming one of those conferences where it's like, like Cincinnati, where they say even though they went undefeated, they didn't play stiff enough competition?
Right. And look, there's such a wide range of outcomes here. You're talking about one very specific one. When you say, well, the Pac-12 has become the Pac-10. No, I mean, the Pac-12 is the Pac-12 for 2 more years. And in 2 more years, it could be the Pac-10. It could still be the Pac-12. It could be the Pac-8, or it could be the Pac-0. I mean, there's so many. There's such a range of outcomes of what the rest of the dominoes and what the rest of these teams choose to do. Now, in the situation you're proposing, the other 10 teams hang out, and I don't think that's happening. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that happens. Yeah, I mean, you certainly could wind up with a case where it gets looked at closer to a Cincinnati than to a major conference champion, but under your scenario, you still have Oregon and Washington, and certainly Oregon is a national power. So I don't think the remaining 10 Pac-12 schools would shrink to the MAC, right? It's not going to be at that level. But again, there's no way that this is the end of it.
Yeah.
So, it's almost not even worth speculating on what that might be vis-a-vis the college football playoff, which, by the way, tell me how many teams is the playoff going to have, right? Is it still going to have 4?
That's
is it
a
going to have
good
8?
point.
Is
That's
it
a
going to have
good
12?
point. Yeah.
Right? I mean, we have no idea.
Yeah. I would be so ashamed if it got to the point where, the Pac-10 was so not held in a high regard that even if you went all the way undefeated through it, that they would say not good enough. I mean, it breaks my heart. Anyways, Scotty, give me 15, 30 seconds on your book. Plug your book. Where they were then.
Oh, thanks, man. So I got a bunch of my former ESPN colleagues and friends to all contribute one chapter on their early years in sports television. Not like the famous parts in Bristol, but like what was it like for you in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or Kalispell, Montana?
Oh, that's a good
Cheyenne,
idea.
Wyoming.
That's a good idea.
The stories are epic. And it's Scott Van Pelt and Kenny Mayne and Neil Everett and Stan Verrett. It's a lot of big-name guys, and they write their chapters in the first person, talking about how they got into the TV business. So if you're a fan of SVP or all these Sports Center guys, and even some of the ones maybe you aren't as familiar with, they're all phenomenal writers. The stories are like 10 pages each, so it's a quick read, and it's really, really good stuff. So
That's
if you're
awesome.
a sports TV fan, it's on Amazon. I highly recommend it.
It's really hard to come up with a unique idea, but that's a good one. Well, I appreciate you, Scott Reese, on Twitter at Stanford Voice. Check out the book Where They Were Then. Thank you so much, Scott. We got to catch up soon, man. I miss you, buddy.
Sounds good, Zach. Talk to you later.
There you go, Scott Reese. Fantastic work he does. All right. Coming up next, we are going to do more of Zachariah's Random Thoughts. Again, we got to come up with a creative name for that, but so far that's all we got. 916-339-1140. That's phone and text. You're listening to Zachariah, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports, 1140. Just two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting.
It's Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Usually I know all of Jay's stuff. I don't know this one, but it's funky. I like it. Welcome on back, Sacramento. It is Sacktown Sports 1140. It is Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie. Coming up at the top of the hour, we will reset everything. Sacramento Kings, busy offseason, man. Busier than I thought they could even possibly be. And everybody's been telling me A++, you know, giving Monty all the love in the world. And rightfully so. What he has constructed with this roster while not giving up the farm has been nothing short of incredible. And yeah, he inherited a lot of manure. And he's turning that manure into a farm. I just made that up on the fly. I don't even know if it's good, but I like it. You know what I mean? You need manure for the farm? Whatever. So we will reset all of that. And we found Marcus Thompson. It's a flag on me. When I had my show at the other station, we would do flags. If someone made a mistake and we had a flag sound, it's like a whistle, you throw the flag. So that was a 15-yard. Actually, and look.
It's on both of us.
No, honestly, it was on neither of us. To be honest with you, I hate to be. You remember Leon from that beer commercial, where he goes, "Leon, you had 5 fumbles," and he goes, "Would have been fumbles if one of my teammates would have picked them up."
Yeah,
and he goes like, he goes, "I got to place the blame squarely on the shoulders of my teammates." He has all these lines about where he messed up, but he blames everybody else. Anyways, I'm not trying to be Leon, but I copied and pasted Marcus's number and sent it to Jay. And for some reason, it switched a number. I did it right in front of Jay. I copied the number, pasted it, and sent it to him. And literally, it switches one number. It's like a glitch in the Matrix.
It's ridiculous. And it was a foul on me. You know, I guess it was a double penalty.
Yeah, because that's all on the iPhone, though. If I'm copying and pasting, you expected it pastes what you copied.
Yeah, very true. And it's amazing how it flipped the number.
Just 2 numbers.
Yeah,
it just flipped 2 numbers.
It. And then I had Marcus's number written down wrong in my phone, which, you know, we've had Marcus on plenty of times. And I don't know what happened.
Anyway.
Just moving too fast.
Yeah. We got him.
It was a double penalty.
Yeah, it's all right. We figured it out. We got him at 5:15. So we'll reset some stuff. I still haven't gotten into Keegan Murray. So I want to talk about the draft pick because I know I've been positive Pete all day. I'm going to be a little bit negative Nancy. And then we'll reset the Herder trade. And we'll get into that stuff. But right now, we're going to do the segment that we call Zachariah's Random Thoughts. Again, we need to come up with a more creative one. We'll get on it. It's basically me just picking out some stories and telling you how I feel about it. So we got into a few earlier in the day. Did you put those polls up or no? We'll do it at the end of the show. If you want to go vote, it's at Sacktown Sports 1140 on Twitter. I want to know your football teams. Who do you root for? Raiders, Niners, another team, or I don't watch football. Basketball, Kings, Warriors, another team. I don't watch basketball. Baseball, Giants, A's, another team. I don't watch baseball. I'm just curious about that. And then we went over Tyreek Hill, Bennett calling Jimmy G you know what. But I'm just going to touch on a couple here because I got some breaking news, if you will. It's Kings and Warriors related. But real quick, baseball home run celebrations. Now, I know there's more than what I have here, but I couldn't find them. But the 2 that I know for sure, the Red Sox have a wheelbarrow. So you hit a home run, they put you in a wheelbarrow, and then they sprint you down the dugout. Okay? That's all right. I'm all for fun. The Angels have a sombrero. Mike Trout is usually the one wearing it because he's usually the one that's hitting the home runs for the Angels. But Shohei Ohtani, too. They put a sombrero on you after you hit a home run in the dugout, and they celebrate. I'm all for fun. That's fine. Here's where I have a problem with it. When you're losing, I don't like celebrating when you're losing. What are you celebrating? Being down less than you were before? No. I say a new rule for that. You can only celebrate if you're winning. No wheelbarrowing when you're down 8. You should be peed off. You allowed to say the real peed off, Jay? I have no idea what the FCC rules are these days, but I feel like there was a time where you couldn't say I'm still not going to say it because I'm scared. I don't have the best mouth in the world, but for whatever reason, knock on wood, I have never been dumped. Now, for those listeners out there that doesn't know what dumped means, there's a dump button. We're on delay by about 10 seconds, just in case somebody swears. I've never been dumped. Again, knock on wood. And I don't know how, because outside of as soon as that blue light turns on and I know I'm on air, for some reason I clean it all up. I like doing bleep, like get the bleep out of here, because you know what I'm saying, but I didn't swear. Anyways, those are my two random thoughts. We'll have some more in the Word. That's where we go around the wacky world of sports. We'll do that. That's how we end the show. I like ending on a light note. It's all the fun stories within the sports world. So we'll do that at 5:45. Okay, the breaking news. You know this man well. Dante DiVincenzo. Guess who he signed with? You'll never guess it. You'll never guess it. The Warriors. So he doesn't have to move far. That's pretty much my commute when I come from Berkeley. The Warriors picking him up. I was surprised to see that. But, hey, I know Kings fans, as Nick was saying at the bottom of the hour, talking about how Kings fans were feeling like, oh, no, here we go. We just let Dante walk for nothing. But he said, be patient, wait. Wait and see what he does after this. Don't just jump to an angry conclusion. And he didn't have to go far, like I said. Nice pickup for the Warriors, because the Warriors lost a lot of people. I think, Gary Payton Jr., what a pickup. Gary Payton Jr., my buddy told me this.
Got the bag.
Well, a bag, yeah, a bag for him. But did you know this story? Shout out to Gabe if you're listening. He's the one that told me this. He didn't make any roster in the going into the season. He went to Warriors management and said, "Can I be a video coordinator?" Asked to be a video coordinator. They were like, "Okay." So he stuck around, and then I'll never forget the press conference when he got the news that he was going to be on the roster for the rest of the season. He looked like a kid in Christmas. And now look at him. He was pretty important for the Warriors in the playoffs in this finals run. And, he's Gary Payton II. So, he's got defense in his genes. He plays good defense. I was more surprised at how well he played offense. And now look at him. He's got a 3-year deal in Portland. Good for him. But, so the Warriors lost 3 guys, but they just retained Looney and signed Dante. So you know what? It works. Moving parts, stuff like that. I always wonder how they budget for, like, how the Warriors had the money for Dante, but not for Gary Payton II. Maybe they felt like Dante was a better fit. I don't know how that works, because money-wise, they could have kept Payton. Maybe they thought Dante was a better fit based on the personnel. But yeah, that's the breaking news, if you will. Tons of moves, man. Tons of moves, but not a lot of change so far. I couldn't even tell you what the biggest upset, in my opinion. I think the biggest upset is yet to fall. I think that's going to come wherever Kevin Garnett goes. And then, I got a Kyrie tweet that I'll just tell you now. He tweeted a picture of a bird house, and then the door opening and the bird flying out. And it's just on repeat. It's like a GIF or a GIF or whatever the kids are calling it. That Kanye guy is something special.
The Dante DiVincenzo, so the Warriors use part of their MLE, the mid-level exception. Yeah. And so 2 years worth $9.3 million, according to Tim Bontemps of ESPN, and a few other cats. But the 3 for $28 that Portland gave Gary Payton, there's no way you couldn't sign Looney and give the same to GP2. So you had to make a choice.
Yeah. And
they made their choice. And, the other part about this, really, Zachariah, and you can speak to this from being in the Bay, man, and rocking with the Dubs, a lot's going to go on Mr. Wiseman now. A lot of pressure is on James Wiseman.
Yeah.
Because
Number 2 overall pick.
I mean, it's your time to shine, young fella. You got to go get it.
Can't stay on the court. All right, coming up at the top of the hour, we will recap everything that's gone down. I have not given you my opinion on the Kings draft yet. Believe me, I will. I am never short for words. 916-339-1140 is the phone number and the text line number. So we'll come back at you at the top of the hour. It is Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here on Sacktown Sports, 1140.
Cattles and Ramie. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports, 1140. Just two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting. It's Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Jay knows what he's doing to me there. You don't know this song? Turn the station. No. Sorry. Don't do that. I don't want to get in trouble with Nick. Leave it right there, but just go look it up. Mac Dre, Feeling Myself. Best part about this song is even if you don't know how to dance, you can do whatever you want and it works. And Mac Dre, if he was alive, God rest his soul, would tell you that. Just do whatever and you're feeling yourself.
You could dust yourself off. You could steal a bass like you did third.
Exactly.
You could do the bird. I mean, there's all kind of things you could do.
You could do anything you want and it counts. It goes. Welcome on back. It is Zachariah here on Sacktown Sports 1140. Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie. If you want to join the show, 916-339-1140. Again, that's 916-339-1140. That is the same for Twitter, Sacktown Sports 1140. Tweet at us over there. And I'm at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports on Twitter. Hit me up, follow me, all that good stuff. You know, people lie when they say they don't care about followers. Everybody cares about followers. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it helps. It's like the first thing people do when they go to they see how many followers you have, and if you have a lot, then they'll follow you. It's apropos. You follow because you see followers, so you follow other people in following you, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, it's the last hour. Forgive me. So we're going to recap. We do have Marcus Thompson. It was a flag on us for not having him in the 3 o'clock hour. He's a fantastic writer for The Athletic, covers the Warriors fantastically, wrote a bunch of award-winning well-regarded books. So we'll talk to him in about 15 minutes. I do want to get into the draft for the Kings and how I felt about the pick, whether or not I thought it was a good one. Spoiler alert, I've been very positive about the Kings and their offseason moves, but when it comes to Keegan Murray, not necessary. It wouldn't have been my choice there. Let's put it like that. But I'll list the pros and the cons. We'll do that at about probably 5:30. Let's call it that. But right now, I just want to give you guys a recap. If you're, most of you are probably off. Like Nick's off. He was almost not off, but he stayed off because his wife made sure he stayed off. But a lot of people take Friday off. We have July 4th weekend coming up. So if you're just getting in your car and you don't know about any of the most recent moves in terms of NBA free agency, which is all anybody's talking about, I got into the Kevon Durant stuff a little bit with the Nets stuff because that is like a full-blown soap opera. I've never seen anything like it, at least in my lifetime. I'm sure it's happened before, but from what I can remember, I can't remember superstars like that and it going this crazy. I mean, there's been drama and stuff like that, but like, you know, James Harden basically forcing himself out, and then Kyrie saying that he wanted to be traded, but then he opted in, and then Kevon Durant, who never like a diva like, well, I guess he is kind of a diva like that, but not really prototypical Kevon Durant. He usually does it the right way and then gets out, and then he's demanding a trade now. Just a complete you-know-what storm over in Brooklyn. But just to get you up to date, Dante DiVincenzo, you know him well, was with the Kings last year, obviously. The Kings let him go. Kings fans, I think, were a little bit upset, but they let him go. And he signed with the champs. He signed with the Warriors. 2-year, $9.3 million deal. The deal has a player option on year 2. They used a chunk of their tax mid-level, the Warriors did, to land DiVincenzo. And then this is not surprising. I saw this coming from a mile away almost. Rudy Gobert heading to the Timberwolves. They're blowing that thing up. Snyder didn't re-sign. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they probably told him in the offseason, like, look, we got to blow this up with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, all that good stuff. Well, he's headed to the Timberwolves, which on paper seems like an odd fit. You know? I mean, him and Karl Anthony Towns on the court at the same time. I mean, it sounds good in theory because Cat doesn't have the best defense and Gobert will make up for that. But the hell are they going to do with, if they have a bunch of shooters on the court? Kevon Looney returns to the Warriors. That was a no-brainer. I knew that from inside people a long time ago. They were not. They didn't want to let anybody go, but they were going to let Porter Jr., Gary Payton II. Everybody's a junior or the second these days. But Kevon Looney, they were going to keep him, and they did. 3 years, $25.5 million. That's a steal. $8 million or a little bit more. Let's just call it $9 a year when you're seeing guys sign for $50. And he was a starter and played a prominent role in their championship. So the rich just keep on getting richer. The Celtics acquire Malcolm Brogdon. They could have used him last year in the finals. That's a pretty big deal. And then you got a bunch of max contracts. Zach LaVine with the Bulls. Who else we got? I know Devin Booker with the Suns. Anyways, just pretty much everybody that you can imagine that's a superstar just added to their contract, max deals. Zach LaVine with the Bulls, yeah. And then, so those are pretty much your deals. But in terms of locally, for Sacramento, the Kings come in, and not only did they sign Malik Monk from the Lakers a few days ago, but they make the trade today for Kevin Huerter. And I like this move a lot. He came from Atlanta. He kind of was expendable in Atlanta, but he played a great role there. And now he comes to your Sacramento Kings. And I like the move a lot. And I like this. I keep looking at this depth chart, and I'm salivating. I'm not like over the top crazy, but I like it a lot. Darren Fox, Davion Mitchell is his backup. Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk is his backup. Harrison Barnes, Terrence Davis is his backup. Keegan Murray, who we're going to get to in a second. Trey Lyles is his backup. Domantas Sabonis with Rashawn Holmes as his backup. This is a young, talented core built for today's basketball. And I'm excited to see. I mean, there might be more moves. Knicks thinks they're not done wheeling and dealing. I can't see them doing much more. I didn't think they had much wiggle room to begin with. I mean, honestly. I'm really, really impressed with what they did in this offseason. And, that's where you just gotta salute the front office. Because, like I said, my funny, weird comparison, talking about receiving manure and turning it into a farm. I think it's pretty good.
Thought you were going Klay Thompson again. I was getting ready to pass out on the backside of this glass, brother.
I'm not making that mistake again. If you missed earlier in the show, I was saying Kevin Huerter kind of can play the Klay Thompson to De'Aaron Fox's Steph. I was just comparing the body type, not the skills. I mean, like 75% of it. I'm not saying that. I would never go there and call them the Splash Brothers of the North Bay. I was just saying in terms of the skill set, not the skill set, in terms of the style of play is what I was going after. But let's hear from the man who's getting all the praise on the text line. People are blowing it up, talking about extending him, and this will be our transition from the moves that he's made to the draft that happened. And this is where I'm finally going to be negative. I've been positive all day, but you're going to get my negative right here. Here is the GM, Monty McNair, on their draft pick, 4th overall, Keegan Murray.
I think at the end of the day, with the 4th pick, after exploring all our options, we felt extremely comfortable that the best player available was Keegan Murray, and we are extremely excited to welcome Keegan to the Kings family.
Okay, here are my initial thoughts that I'm going old school. I've been using a laptop the whole time. I'm going old school. I got pen and paper, and it's not even typed out. This is handwritten chicken scratch right here. Okay, I wanted my initial reaction. This is going to sound completely off the wall, so bear with me, okay? I hate Iowa basketball. And if there's any Iowanians listening to me right now, I apologize.
What's your hate towards them folks up there in Iowa?
First of all, I went to a camp in Iowa when I was a kid. It is the worst state in the world.
Have you been to the other 49 states, all of them?
Most of them. Enough to know that was the worst. I was there for a basketball tournament. I'm not kidding. The bus was waiting for me. I stayed around in the hotel, went to the bathroom mirror, looked in the mirror and said, Zachariah, you will never return to Iowa again. It's that bad. That's number one. Number two, I never picked them in my pool for March Madness because they're first of all, they'll let you down. Second of all, their style of play is like watching paint dry. So I was already angry about that. And I wrote down, this is verbatim about me getting angry. Who has ever come out of Iowa? All wait. I wrote that to myself. I told myself, all wait. This is how angry I was. Then I looked it up. I said, does Devin Marble do it for you? How about Adam Huska? In all seriousness, the only names you would recognize are Ricky Davis and B.J. Armstrong. I saved the best for last, Don Nelson, but that was in like the 50s. Iowa's been around since 1902. Not perfect at math, but I believe that's 120 years. Let's be conservative and call it a 12-man roster. That's 1,440 players. And that's your list? I'm not saying that means anything, but I don't like those odds. Plus, he's choosing to wear number 13. That's bad luck, although Nash wore number 13. Never won a ring, though.
Doug Christie. Tyreek Evans.
He was an unranked prospect. I mean, the list goes on, but I'm no scout. He could be the next great player.
No love for Luke Garza just coming out in the lottery a couple years ago. Love for Fran McCaffrey.
Let's see how that goes. I don't like my odds. I like my guys out of Kentucky, okay?
I'm guessing corn's not your favorite vegetable.
But if you need it, all you got to do is look around up there. But yeah, no, not my bag, if you will. Few more cons, and this is from my buddy. He said, older for a rookie compared to others getting drafted. He'll be 22 by the time the season starts. Well, now I don't want it to be all negative. But yeah, I mean, my initial reaction was, well, you know who I wanted originally, and he was available. And then I got to get my list over here. Where's my draft list? Hang on real quick.
The argument, though, Zachariah, is I get what you're saying when it comes to just the personal feeling of Iowa. It sounds like you have a grudge towards Iowa. You must have got up there and lost the tournament on like a game winner or something, man. I don't know what happened with the up in Iowa where you took the L as a tournament team.
No, actually, honestly, it wasn't a tournament. It was like a
showcase
it was like a training camp.
Oh, okay,
and
gotcha.
it went fine. It was just like in the downtime, you walk around.
What part of Iowa, first of all?
I forget.
Come on. You can't talk bad about Iowa.
It was hot. It was humid. And like you said, there was nothing but corn everywhere. Anyways.
Field of dreams, no love, huh?
No. Jaden Ivey went right after.
Yeah,
I would have taken him. And then, I always talked about Dyson Daniels. Again, I'm not like some college. This is just for me doing research on the players and how I think they would fit.
Absolutely.
And, so anyways, I was kind of down on the pick, but I hope I'm proven wrong because he will be in the starting rotation. The good news about him is he's one of the most NBA-ready players to go.
Yeah, but you called him old already.
I said
the
older.
Dude's 22.
I know. Well, he's
older. What is that, grandpa in the NBA at
Kinda.
this point? It's not.
Guys are coming out at 19.
Yeah, but we overlook that too much. Excuse me, we put too much on that sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the dude's come out, he's from Europe, and he's 27 already. In his prime, he's grown man strength.
Yeah.
He's 22.
I hear you.
I mean, the dude's barely able to go get a 12-pack.
All right. Well, I'll give you the pros at 5:45, and we'll talk about Mike Brown as well. I'm sorry, at 5. Yeah. What am I doing here? At 5:30, we will go back over the draft, and we will go back over Mike Brown and a bunch of other stuff. But coming up in about how many minutes? 2 minutes. Coming up in 2 minutes, the man, the myth, the legend, Marcus Thompson. We'll talk to him about the Dubs. We'll talk to him about Mike Brown. He knows them well. He covers the Warriors better than anybody for The Athletic. It is Zachariah filling in for the Cattles and Ramie show right here, Sacktown Sports, 1140.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sacktown Sports, 1140. Just two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting.
It's Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Welcome on back, Sacramento and beyond. If you're listening on the app or watching on YouTube, all that good stuff. It is Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. If you want to text in or call in, 916-339-1140. We're going to get back into the Kings offseason, talk a little bit about Mike Brown, which we're going to do with our next guest, the one and only. He's so kind to give me part of his time. He's a award-winning author. He covers the Warriors and pretty much everything. He says he writes bars for The Athletic. I've never seen a writer write bars. That's usually for rappers, but I love it. He does write bars for The Athletic. He's on Twitter at Thompson Scribe. He's Oakland's own, author of Golden. By the way, let me finish it. He's author of Golden, KD, and Dynasty books. So go check all those out. By the way, Marcus, I saw you in that press conference say something along the lines of, wouldn't you say it was maybe even Golden? You got to laugh at a Steph for that.
Oh, yeah, man. How you think that thing was the bestseller?
You did that all the time, huh? You just worked that word in there.
You know what I'm saying? That's a good promo, man. I'm from the hood, so we know how to sell stuff out the trunk.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a hustle for sure. Before we get into other stuff, hopefully I didn't interrupt. Hopefully you finished it, but you were writing about the re-signing of Kevon Looney. Now, from what I understood going into the offseason, while they wanted to keep a lot of guys, Gary Payton II, Otto Porter Jr. the second, or the third. From what I heard, there was no way they were going to let Kevon Looney go. Is that the proper understanding?
Yeah, but before I answer that, we got to pause and talk about the fact that you just said Otto Porter Jr. the third.
What was I supposed to say? Sorry, I've been throwing names around all day today. You gonna bust me out, huh?
All these suffixes get you. I understand GP2 and all that, but you can't be the junior and the third. But I never heard that, so that's pretty funny. I like that. Now, well, really, it's all about James Wiseman. That's what it's really about. James Wiseman, number 2 pick from 2020. He didn't play all year. He's had this meniscus injury that kept him out way longer than anybody thought, and they're banking on him becoming the center. But until he can prove he's a center, it's Kevon Looney's job. And he was great in the playoffs. They just can't afford to lose him, because if Wiseman's still not ready or he's not very good yet, then they have nothing. So in that sense, Looney becomes the most valuable player. I thought GP2 probably should have been the priority, but considering the center situation, they could not let Kevon Looney go, because otherwise their starting center is some dude off the scrap heap for the minimum, and that you can't win a championship if they go to that. So Loon was always getting in. I think he wanted a little bit more money than what he got, but he's back to the Bay where he belongs anyway.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Marcus, with all this money that you've seen getting thrown around, $50 million, $40 million, $30 million, $20 million, were you shocked that Kevon could only get 8 a year over 3?
Not really, man. You got to get buckets. You got to get buckets, or you got to be an athlete, or you got to be legit 7 feet. Looney is 6'9", right? He put on some weight, but he's really a forward. When he came out of high school, they was calling him the next KD. So he's not a true center. So he's not 7 foot. He's not a rim protector. He doesn't block a lot of shots, and you got to get buckets. You want to get money in free agency, you got to get buckets. You got to be actual 7 feet rim protector. You know what I'm saying? Or you got to be a super athlete. But the OG lunch tail dudes to do all the dirty work, it's hard. It's hard to get money on the free agent market like that.
Yeah, I wonder what his other offers were. Marcus Thompson the second. See, look, you got me over there messing style. I almost called you Marcus Thompson Jr. the third or whatever.
I'm just saying, pick one. That's it. Whatever it is, pick one.
Marcus Thompson the second here on Sacktown Sports 1140. Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie. Well, you're on air right now in Sacramento, Marcus, and as you know, Mike Brown signed up to be the head coach his third go-round. He was with Cleveland, then he was with L.A. What should Sacramento expect based on, do you think he learned a lot being the assistant with, around all this success with Golden State, and you think he'll be able to bring that up to Sacramento? Because we already know Luke Walton tried and didn't necessarily succeed.
I mean, yeah, it's tough not to learn, but I do think it's a big difference to learn while you're coaching Steph Curry, right? Like some of the lessons that you learn when it's Klay Thompson or Draymond Green, they probably won't superimpose. They won't work as well if it ain't Steph Curry and Draymond Green. But like what Zach can expect is the coach who's like going to coach up the defense, right? Like the days of being the sieve, not getting after it, like that's just not how Mike Brown rolls. Like he's going to coach a defense. So if there's a minute log jam and you got to try to figure out well who's going to get the minutes, Mike Brown's going to go with the guy who plays defense. Right? That's just how he thinks. He was a defensive coordinator. He was the reason they were elite. He had them dudes going back and forth like in the game between zone and man and matchup and box and one. So you can expect that he's going to go in on defense, and everybody's going to be held accountable, especially the guards. That's a big deal with him. The other thing is, too, like, Mike Brown's one of them cats who, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I do think he's going to bring the ball movement and motion that he learned with Steve Kerr. Like, I do think he's going to incorporate that. Like, it's important to get everybody involved. All of that stuff, that's the type of stuff you learn from Steve Kerr. Keeping guys live who might be the 14th man on roster, giving them minutes sometimes so they can feel a part of it. He'll bring all that. But Mike Brown is also the kind of dude that's like, listen, if they ain't stopping to pick and roll, we're going to run it every time. So if somebody has a matchup, you can expect them to exploit that. But most of all, I think it's going to be defense. That's where you're going to really know Mike Brown is there because the defense is going to be a priority.
Yeah, and they certainly need it. I mean, they need more help on the defensive end than they do on the offensive end. All right, I'm assuming you went to the parade, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I was in the building.
Oh, okay. All right, let's end this on a fun note. First of all, Klay Thompson saying anything is possible in reference to Kevin Garnett saying anything is possible was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Klay in general was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Usually in a championship parade in any sport, you see one or two guys get off the bus. It seems like everybody did, and especially Klay knocking people over. What was your favorite moment of the parade?
Leaving. Man, it was hot as hell. My feet was hurting. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I hear you.
Nah, it was. It had to be. It's a toss up between seeing Steph so lit. Like we've never seen Steph that on 10. Like,
well, yeah, he's usually guarded. Yeah.
Yeah, he was talking his talk. He was running around. He was screaming like he was on one. So that was unique. It wasn't a moment. It was just a vibe you got from Steph. Like he was turned all the way up. And then, that kept going that night. If you follow on social media, like he was toast, right? Like he was lit. The other one, I'm torn between Klay not only trucking a woman, but barely, like he lifted her up and kept going. He didn't even give her like the precursory selfie or hug. He was just like, "Hey man, get out of the way."
Good? You good? All right, I'm going.
Right? He was gone. He was like, "Oh, you all right? She good?" Or when he put the trophy down and tried to do Michael Jackson. If I was to put a list of people who mimic Michael Jackson dances, like Klay Thompson's at the bottom, right? Klay Thompson's way at the bottom. Like, dude, what are you doing? Stop, bruh. Stop. Don't do this. Pull out your Jack Harlow dance. Pull out pull out anybody.
Yeah.
Don't be messing with Mike, man.
Yeah,
you gotta have some actual rhythm for Mike.
Hey, he was Mac Dre, man. He was feeling himself. All right, real quick, 30 seconds. This seemed to be the most satisfying championship, even over the first one. Am I wrong? Because I remember Klay, when he came back, all he talked about was, I just want to win another championship. I want that. And I was like, damn, Klay, be easy, like wait to come back or whatever. And it just seemed like for everybody, it was some form of redemption or you tell me, would you put this, because I know the two with KD aren't up there, but would you put this above the first one?
Yeah, I mean, they do for sure. They was down. No, the first one was like they were on their way up. Remember this? They won playoffs 2013. Mm-hmm. They lost in 2014, and then they won. They were trending upward. This one, they was in the grave, right? They were like people were pouring dirt on the grave. They were done. They were 15-50, and it was over. Yeah. And they heard 2 years of people talking trash. So this was the back then didn't want me, now I'm hot all on me title. It's the Mike Jones title.
Marcus Thompson II. Follow him on Twitter at Thompson Scribe. Also, check out his books, Golden, KD, and Dynasties. He writes for The Athletic. Marcus, I know you're busy, man. I really appreciate your time, and have a good one.
All right, man. Treat them well, Sacktown. This is what we do. This is one of the homies.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm a Bay boy. I'm Berkeley. He's Oakland, but you know how it is. All right, Marcus. Thank you, man. There you go. Marcus Thompson II. Man, great dude, great writer. Fantastic stuff. All right, coming up next, we're going to get back to the Kings offseason, the NBA offseason in general before wrapping it up with the word at 5:45. If you want to text in 916-339-1140, that's the phone line as well. You're listening to Zachariah filling in for the Cattles and Ramie show right here on Sacktown Sports 1140.
Cattles and Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140.
Time is 5:30. Time to get a new mattress. Shop local at Sleep First. It's time to check out Coastside Medical Clinic, who's dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men.
Just Two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting. It's Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Welcome on back, Bay Area. Oops. That was a Freudian slip.
Man, that's the third time I'm going to have to hit the brakes on you.
My bad, bro.
Come on, man. Rest in peace to Briss here.
My bad.
Sacramento.
Welcome
artist.
back, Sacramento. No, I was saying, I was talking to the listeners. I was 5 years there, man. Anyways, welcome back, Sacramento. Don't hate me for that. It is Zachariah filling in for the Cattles and Ramie show. Hey, man, the Bay Area and Sacramento, we're like brothers. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I said, welcome back, New York. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it get very territorial around these parts of Northern California, man.
South, man. I'm both now. You know what I mean? I'm an adopted.
Like the fact you can cross it over a little bit, go left to right, right to left, but you gotta be careful, man.
Crossover. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, that was an honest mistake. Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. If you want to text in or call in, 916-339-1140, and on Twitter. Same thing, Sacktown Sports 1140. I'm at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. Nick, if you're listening, don't hold this against me. I'm just reading from the text line, from the 209. Nick is the biggest nerd calling in on his day off. Every time I hear day off, I think of Friday. How you going to get fired on your day off? Such a good line. Coming up at 5:45, we're going to close the show out the way I like to close every show out, with the word, where you go around the wacky world of sports. So it's not just, it's basically the TMZ of sports. It's got to be tied into sports, but it's not like a hard-hitting sports story. It's something goofy, something wild, something out of left field. So we've been talking so far about all the moves. In case you're just listening for the first time, Kevin Huerter, the Kings acquire Kevin Huerter from the Hawks in exchange for Justin Holiday, Maurice Harkless, and a future first-round draft pick. The draft pick is protected, lottery protected next year, top 12 protected 2025, and top 10 protected in 2026. And like I said, all of the recaps of the trade from various writers are all confused as to why the Hawks did it and think that Sacramento made out like a bandit on it. So you should be thrilled about that. And then obviously, the other, I'm blanking. Sorry. Help me out here. I'm fluttering.
Come on, little Rudy Gobert to Minnesota action?
No. Who the Kings signed from the Lakers?
Oh, Malik Monk.
Malik Monk. My bad, man. I'm just so many names right now today.
I got you, brother. It's NBA free agency frenzy.
Yeah, I know. There's names coming everywhere.
Two for 20. Malik Monk, fresh from the LA, baby. He's gonna be. You got to get it pumped.
Marcus Thompson made fun of me for saying Otto Porter
the third, brother.
Yeah.
I thought you were going. You were almost going George Foreman style, the fourth. Georgina Foreman.
No, not that bad. So anyways, those are the moves for the Kings. And look, the Kings depth chart right now looks really, really good. So I gave a long diatribe about how I was not thrilled with the Keegan Murray draft choice. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but I gave all the cons. Now, let's be positive Pete again, and let's say the good things about him, okay? Prototypical size for a modern NBA wing, swingman, 6'8", 225. All-around type guy, not explosive, exceptional at any one thing. But, you know, the comps that I've seen so far are Chris Middleton. Speaking of Otto Porter. I've also seen, who else did I see? Well, put it like this. Jay Billis said he might have been the best overall player in the country last year. That's in college. He went from 7 points a game to 24 points a game. Most ready for the NBA now, which I think had a lot to do with the Kings drafting him, because they're ready to compete now. They're not like looking for the future. Just like hiring Mike Brown, I think was a selection, or not a selection, but a hire because they want to compete now. I think it's similar in this situation. In terms of Keegan Murray, they didn't want to draft some guy that had a high risk reward. They wanted a guy that had maybe not necessarily the highest ceiling, but the highest floor. So, the other comparison is Pascal Siakam. So Those are some pros. Consistent shot mechanics from every level. Spaces the floor. Shoots damn near another 40% from three guy. Crashes the offensive boards. Blocks and steals at a good rate. Great low turnover rate, 1.1 per game for a guy that carries the ball that much. Solid fundamentals, hoops IQ, attitude, coachable. Parents were both D1 athletes at Iowa. Dad was a McDonald's All-American and 4-year starter in college, later coached JUCO. So he's got the basketball DNA in him. So those are the good parts. And who knows how it's all going to fit together. I could be totally wrong. I was just giving you, I literally was watching the draft and I said, I'm going to take notes after they draft. And when I saw it, I'm not going to lie, I was not thrilled. And especially when you see what went after that, because there was a couple of guys that I would have taken. Jaden Ivey specifically. I think Jaden Ivey was pretty shocked that he fell all the way to 5th. I think he was planning on going a little bit higher than that. And then, of course, Dyson Daniels, who didn't go to college. He went to the G League. I think the G League probably prepares you for the NBA more than anything else. So if your reasoning for drafting Keegan Murray was that he was the most NBA ready, I think you get the most NBA ready at the G League as opposed to college. We'll see how it all plays out. I mean, overall, like I'm getting on the text line, A++, everybody should be happy. I haven't seen anybody say that they didn't like something. I've been the only one to come up with something negative, and it was just the draft pick. But AAA+, Monty, extend Monty, all that stuff. You gonna say something, Jay?
No, I was gonna say, man, it's one of those things where, and I said this when it happened on draft day. Everyone always has an opinion about a draftee, a guy who's been drafted. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know what's going to happen with Paolo. We don't know what's going to happen with Chet. And so on and so forth. And then there's a lot of people who believe, we don't even know what's going on with last year's draft picks.
That's true.
We talked about, you talked about James, I talked about James Wiseman. And Marcus Thompson talked about James Wiseman. We don't know what we're getting from James Wiseman yet.
So and a lot of these guys need to come. I mean,
give them a couple years.
There's very few players that come in and hit the ground running right away. There's
generational talent.
Yeah, LeBron James or whatever. Right. I mean, you knew right away. But real quick, let's hear from the GM that everybody wants to extend. They said that this was a unanimous decision.
Ultimately, after sitting in the room with my front office staff, our whole staff, our scouting department, our analytics department, became unanimous that Keegan Murray was the best player available, and we jumped at the chance to select him.
That's always good. I mean, I don't think they would tell you if it was a divided room, but you like to hear that everybody was on board with it. So we'll see how it all plays out. All in all, you got to give the offseason, and again, Nick doesn't think that they're done, but even if they're done right now, I give them an A for the offseason. Because, again, I don't know about the draft. I don't know about Keegan Murray enough to really – again, it wouldn't have been my choice, but I could be totally wrong. And in terms of the trade and the signing, I mean, you got to be excited if you're a Kings fan. All right, coming up next, we're going to end it in a light way. The way that I love ending shows, it's called The Word. We go around the wacky world of sports. It's all the weird stories that are not necessarily on the court or on the field, but it is tied into sports. We'll do that next. It's Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie right here, Sacktown Sports 1140.
It's Cattles, it's Ramie, Sacktown Sports 1140.
Time is 5:43. It's time to get a new mattress. Shop local at Sleep First.
It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Cattles and Ramie. Sacktown Sports 1140.
Would you come and swoop me, girl? Hop on the phone. This is Be Legit and Levitti. Look it up, kids. Come and swoop me. It's a fantastic song. Welcome on back. It is Zachariah filling in for Cattles and Ramie. One more segment before we get on out of here. Sacktown Sports 1140. Follow the station at Sacktown Sports 1140. Follow me on Twitter at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. We'll get to the word here in a second, but people have been texting in 916-339-1140 on the text line. Absolutely fantastic text from the 916. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. I didn't realize that was today. If you don't know what that is, Bobby Bonilla signed a contract with the Mets, and his agent very intelligently, because the Mets gave him an offer. They said, look, we can give you all this money or we can defer it and give you like I forget what the exact number is, but it's like $1.5 million until like the year 2040. So he got like way more money. 1.1 every year until like 2040. So like now it's like Happy Bobby Bonilla Day where the Mets have to pay Bobby Bonilla he gets $1.1 million every year. And it's genius because athletes are not necessarily smart with their money, and this way it's impossible for him to blow it, and he's probably gotten older enough now that he's more responsible with his money. But yes, great text, 916. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. God, he must be, that agent, they don't often deserve their money. He earned his money encouraging his client to do that. He probably still gets a percentage. He probably told him to do it because he wanted it for himself too. But yeah, that's just that's typical Mets, isn't it? So I was reading this because I know people that have made this mistake before. And there's kids out there listening or anybody young enough to make this mistake. Do not make this mistake. PJ Washington, he had a very public breakup with Brittany Renner after she had their child, but it didn't take long for him to move on. This is the... So he and IG model Alyssa Chanel have been dating for months, and it seems that things are getting serious. So serious that PJ has gotten her name tatted on his hand. Boys out there, girls out there, never, ever, 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 ever. I don't even care if you're married, because you never know what's going to happen. Do not get somebody's name tattooed on your body. I mean, I guess nowadays you can get it removed or at least covered up, but just don't do it. Please, don't do it. All right, moving on. Larissa Pippen, who has a son with Scottie Pippen, is scouting Lakers players to date after her son Scottie Pippen Jr. signs a two-way contract with the team. So if you see Scottie Pippen Jr., he looks a lot like his dad, and he's tall like his dad. And Larissa was known for going out on Scottie when they were together. But apparently...
Allegedly.
Huh?
Allegedly.
No. I think this was confirmed.
Well, allegedly.
All right, fine, allegedly. You're right. Thank you for covering my back. But anyways, so in celebration of the good news, Scottie Jr. linked up with his parents who finalized their divorce after 3 years back in January to pop a few bottles and express their overwhelming gratitude about the exciting news. One picture shared to Larissa Pippen's story shows Scottie crying as he embraced their oldest son along with Justin and Preston. So I guess... because your son makes the two-way team for the Lakers, then you just go thirst trap the team? If you're the son, you don't want your mom dating the guys on the team that you're trying to make.
Come on, Mama LeBron. We don't want that.
Just pick any other team but the team that your team is dating. I saw this, and I knew this from before, but it just looks like such an odd couple. But Rich Paul and Adele, they went to Kevin Love's wedding, and LeBron and his wife were there. And look, all four interracial couples. It has nothing to do with black and white. They just look like like he's small, and I'm not calling her big, but she's bigger. They just look funny together. And I would just never, if you told me who's Adele dating next, I can't tell you how many people I would get to before I got to Rich Paul. But apparently Kevin Love's wedding was off the chain, as they say. And have you heard of the Kardashian curse?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah. Have you?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Okay.
I might even actually think I believe in that. A bit.
I would think that with all the attention that they get, I mean, it probably doesn't distract you from your task.
Of course.
But,
there's some cats that's lost, though, man. Like, where's Chris Humphries?
I know. They were only married for like 8 months.
Austin Miles. Like, there's some guys.
Oh, yeah, Austin Miles.
Good luck finding some of these dudes right now.
Well, they said that, the Suns and Devin Booker had the best record in the league.
Right.
And he was
but
dating.
They took that L.
Kendall, took that a big-time L at home in Game 7. And then I think him and Kendall were broken up, but now there's rumors that they're getting back together. But anyways, Lamar Odom came out. You remember Lamar Odom almost died, almost overdosed at a brothel. Were they married? Him and Chloe?
Yeah, they were married.
Yeah. So anyways, he came out and said that Taja P. Henderson is better than Chloe and wishes that Tajay would take him back. But I saw that, and I mean, he looks pretty good considering what he went through. Here's a story on Kyrie, since we're talking about NBA free agency. It should be noted that this is just one side of the story and doesn't go into specifics, but if it's true, it goes against all that brotherhood message that Kyrie always speaks about. Here we go. Appearing on ESPN's Get Up, NBA insider Brian Windhorst explained that the issues between Kyrie and the Nets last year extended beyond his refusal to get vaccinated in compliance with New York City ordinances. Windhorst revealed that Kyrie's treatment of his fellow players and coaches was an issue too. Quote, the Nets front office made it clear that status quo from last season is not acceptable, and it wasn't just about the vaccine mandate. It was about the way Kyrie treated his teammates and his coaches. I could see that. I mean, there's got to be something more to the story, because the vaccine mandate, it's a moot point now. It's not, so it had to have gone deeper.
Well, I mean, look, on the surface, the one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to get on here and say that people weren't worried about COVID, because I think the world has seen that it's very, very serious. But I do think there is always a little more than what seems on the surface and to the eye, Zach. Like, I give you that, man. Yeah. And, we've seen, and this is the problem is Kyrie, because of his actions and decisions and thoughts and statements he's made, it's tough to really just rock with Kyrie and believe 100% of what Kyrie is saying, though,
Yeah.
compared to, but there's, as I always believe, there's three sides to every story.
Yeah.
It's the truth, yours and mine, I get what Kyrie's coming with, and I somewhat believe what he's saying too, though.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is he's been able to do whatever he wants. And finally, he took it too far, and it was a wrap, and so they had to step in. Finally, we'll end with this. I don't know if Draymond Green should get more microphones or he should have 0 microphones. But either way, he's in the headlines. I don't know who. I mean, genius to give him a podcast. It's nothing short of entertaining. But he called Kendrick Perkins what I would say is the C word. Rhymes with Looney Tunes. The last part of Looney rhymes with tune. Anyways, Adam Silver stepped in. He was like, enough is enough. And he made Draymond Green apologize to Kendrick Perkins. But, I mean, that guy is constantly making headlines. He had a beef with Skip Bayless, saying that Draymond Green and Skip Bayless arguing if Skip has made a career out of criticizing black athletes like LeBron. Now, I think Skip Bayless is basically a caricature, of an actual sports analyst. But, to be fair, Skip Bayless rips into everybody. So I can't necessarily say that he just does it with black athletes. All right, that'll do it. It has been Zachariah, it's been a pleasure. Oh, this is a great song to go out to. My buddy got married, and he played this song because the whole thing is like, don't get married, man. Don't get married.
Just around town.
Yeah, the wife was a good sport about it. Because ultimately, Andre 3000 is saying, I don't care that you're telling me that there's all the women in the world. This is my woman. So, it ends on a good note. But yeah, it's been fun. Like I said, follow me on Twitter at Zach Sports, ZAK Sports. I hope to be back here soon. I believe we are live and local again come Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. sharp. Carmichael, Dave, and the crew. I'm sure they're going to have a lot to say about the trade. Who knows what's going to happen in between now and then? Everybody out there, enjoy your 4th of July weekend. Should be a good one. Weather should be nice. I don't know what I'm doing. When you're 38 and not 28, it's hard to know what your plans are. It's like I would have had 15 plans before. It's been Zachariah right here, Sacktown Sports, 1140.